Villains are the opposing force of your characters. After all, without bad guys, there wouldn't be a story. Villains are often the most important NPC in a campaign, so choosing the right villain and archetype is important. In this video, I will outline 13 different villain archetypes. I will explore the concepts between each one a little bit and then explain how we can use them in a D&D setting. Then after that, I'll give a few examples from pop culture for each different archetype so you can compare them and reference them to something you already know. So let's get into it, starting with the monster. This villain has no rhyme or reason. They just want one thing, and that is to kill and destroy. I guess that's two things. Imagine it was one. They have no motivation, no backstory, no goals other than to destroy. This type of villain works really well in some scenarios. It works well for a quest for the party to have. They just need to eliminate this monster. It's harassing a town, they need to kill it. This is a good use for this type of villain. They obviously don't make the strongest BBEGs because they don't have backstory or motivations or goals. They just want to destroy. So defeating them while being satisfying will not be as satisfying as defeating someone who has been plotting and working against the protagonists. Examples of this archetype include King Kong, Godzilla, and Jaws. The Mastermind. This archetype is the opposite of the monster. They are all brains. They have goals and motivations and the means of achieving them. Their reach can be anywhere from local, such as controlling an entire town, to international, global, or universal, depending on your campaign. They are secretly pulling the strings behind the scenes, making sure that their goals are achieved. They are often fantastic manipulators and naturally lend themselves to being very satisfying BBEGs. If they're not a BBEG, they are probably a key player in a continent or kingdom or wherever you want to have one. Because of their influence, they have to play a major role in the story. Examples of this archetype include Silco, Zemo, Lex Luthor, Ozymandias, Light Yagami, and Doflamingo. The Fanatic. The Fanatic will stop at nothing to achieve their mission. Their goals or ideological views are often quite extreme. They are extremists. All terrorists, for the most part, would fit into this category. The Fanatic could believe that the source of everyone's pain and trauma is magic users and wish to eradicate them all from the world. This type of villain is one of the most common types in modern media because they are very easy to make sympathetic, and if we care for the villain and see their motivations, then they are more effective as a villain. Examples of the Fanatic include Thanos, Amon, Unalaq, and Zahir, and in some cases Magneto, though sometimes he could be argued to be a mastermind instead, depending on the depiction. The Shadow or Mirror. This archetype is very common in superhero, action, and fantasy genres. It basically asks the question, what if the protagonists were evil? The way this is done is by having the villain share either backstories, motivations, goals, or powers and abilities with the protagonists, showing what they would be if they turned evil. The shadowing or mirroring of the protagonists really shows what would have happened if the main characters went wrong. The main characters in this case are your party. So the way I would do this is either have a mirror of a powerful NPC, such as a hero of lore, and then imagine if they were evil. That is a good way to do a mirror or shadow for D&D. Or you could make a mirror of each member of the party and have this be a villainous group. I will touch on villainous groups later down this list. Examples of this type of villain are Gandalf and Saruman, or Luffy and Blackbeard, T'Challa and Killmonger, Luke and Darth Vader. The Villain Group. Now I know this isn't really a single archetype that you can build one character off, but I still feel like a villainous group is an archetype that could be used as an antagonist for a D&D campaign, so I put it on this list. A villain group is simply an organization that works together to achieve their goals. I wouldn't have more than 10 different members in a villainous group, otherwise it becomes less impactful when you defeat each one. I reckon the golden number is somewhere between 5 and 8 members in this villainous group. The villainous group can have a leader. If they do, they normally make a really good BBEG, but they can also all be equals, wanting to achieve a similar goal together, so they are working together. In D&D, they work really well because you can have them all ranked in terms of strength. I've seen this used in animes like Demon Slayer, where the rank of the villainous group goes up in strength, and as the characters defeat members that are of lower strength, it shows their character growth and strength progression. So for example, if they're ranked from 1 to 8, 8 being the weakest in strength, and the party, all of them together, just beat number 8, they can only imagine how strong number 1 would be. This is why they are effective in a D&D setting. Examples of this archetype include the Phantom Troop, the Injustice League, the Lower and Upper Moons in Demon Slayer, and the Sinister Six from Spider-Man comics. The Authority. The Authority is a classic villain. It is simply the person who is in charge. This can be from the local mob boss to the mayor of a town to the king of the world. Whoever is the authority is the villain. That is this archetype. Examples of this archetype are any real-life rulers who were villainous in nature, which is many. But in fantasy and pop culture, there are Ozai from Avatar, the Lord Ruler from Mistborn, Kuvira from Korra, or Umbridge from Harry Potter. The Unhinged. The unhinged, the unpredictable, the madman. This archetype is a being of chaos, and they are not often 100% working with full cognitive abilities. This villain is proven to be highly effective and engaging to watch as a viewer, so it works the same way in a D&D campaign. Because you can't depend on this villain, you can't predict their movements, which makes them very scary. Keep in mind that it's very difficult to write this insane madman character and have them morally question the party. So consider that when writing them. They are very good and fun villains, but they might not be the most emotionally impactful ones. The best example of this archetype is obviously the Joker. Classic villain, very famous, very good, lots of good iterations of them. Classic. Besides that, in recent time there's also been Jinx from Arcane, who I think was a very good take on this, and Harley Quinn has her moments. The Corrupted. The Corrupted is a villain archetype where it was someone who was good, who due to something, it could be personal loss, trauma, some experience, that has made them evil. This villain type is arguably more of a backstory, but it is also kind of its own archetype, but it can be combined with the other archetypes here, so keep that in mind. A really good way of doing this in D&D is having this character be an NPC that the party had already met and they all really liked. But then this character goes through something traumatic that is indirectly the party's fault, and now they are evil. This will really make your party be sympathetic towards them and will just make a really good villain. Examples of this archetype are Harvey Dent / Two-Face, Macbeth, or Daenerys in Game of Thrones is actually really interesting because it's a very poorly done attempt at a corrupted character, because she had no reason to be so corrupted morally to just do what she did. So learn what not to do from Game of Thrones and Daenerys. The Cursed. These are similar to the Corrupted, however it hasn't been their experiences in life that has caused them to change, it has been magical influence. This can either be a physical curse or a mental curse, depending on how you want to run things. It can be curable or uncurable. You have many options for a cursed villain. These are actually very valuable villains because you can make a temporary villain out of a good character, such as Ginny in Harry Potter 2. They get cursed for a little bit, the cursed object leaves, they go back to normal. It's good for a temporary villain. Other examples of this archetype include Gollum and Lord Viren from Dragon Prince. The Vigilante. The Vigilante is someone who lives under their own code of law, not caring what society or everyone else thinks is right or wrong. Because of this, they make very interesting villains. They can range anywhere from Robin Hood, who is truly good, Batman, who is mostly good, and other characters such as the Punisher or Venom, who are kind of bad, but they maybe have a bit of a point sometimes. Vigilantes make great villains for D&D parties because they can often align with them in ideologies, but the Vigilante just takes it too far and this shows the party what their path could look like. For example, if the Vigilante and the party are both against the authority, then the Vigilante just goes around killing anyone authority. That's a bit extreme. Whereas your party sees that and then realizes that they have to change their mentality, or this is the path they could walk on. I already covered the examples of this archetype, which are Robin Hood, Batman, Punisher, and Venom. The Chaser. The Chaser will pursue your party to the end of the world. They will stop at nothing until they get to your party and capture them or kill them, depending on the villain. This villain works exceptionally well for a D&D party or campaign that move locations a lot, as it is a common thread between all of these locations, a common enemy, and this just ties together the narrative really well. Examples of this archetype include the Terminator from T2, and T1 actually, but T2 is a better one, And Zuko and Azula from Avatar, they're just chasing the gang all over the world. The Fighter. The Fighter is an archetype that just has a lust for battle. All they want to do is fight the strongest person. Because of this, they can often be allies or enemies depending on where your party stands. They are very interesting villains because of their simplistic motivations, and they can be manipulated by the party. But at the same time, if the person deems that the party is a good combat, they might just attack the party. So they are very interesting villains. And to be honest, I can only think of one villain that fits this, which is Hisoka from Hunter x Hunter. But for some reason, I feel like I've seen this many times before. I just can't remember any characters who do that. So if you remember any, let me know in the comments below. The Selfish Schemer. The Selfish Schemer does exactly what their name implies. They scheme selfishly. They don't care who they backcross, who they hurt, they don't care about anything. They have a goal, oh, I'll align with you until I get it, oh, I'll align with you. They don't really have much morality, right or wrong. They just want to achieve what they want to achieve, and they don't care who gets hurt in the crossfire. This archetype works really well for D&D, as this archetype can and will backstab your party, which, while it sucks for your party, it will be a satisfying narrative moment if you do it right. The best example of this archetype is the MCU's Loki. Copy this, it's just a very well-made villain that would work really well in a D&D setting. And that about covers this video. Please subscribe to this channel. I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers by the end of June. That is my goal. I really hope we reach it. And if we do, I'll make whatever video you guys say in the comments. So let me know, and I'll see you guys next time.